The movie begins on a battlefield in 1991, where there is a soldier named Starks, who is with his squad to capture some suspicious adults. While the squad is busy dealing with the suspicious people, a child comes with fear when he sees Starks, but he and his squad don't capture the child, so Starks tries to calm the child down. However, he doesn't want to calm down, so he pulls out a gun that he hid behind his back, and finally, Starks gets shot. He feels like his life is over at the age of 27, when he remembers everything turning white, and finally he confirms that his life is indeed over. But when treated by the medics, Stark's eyes suddenly open, and finally, the medics become shocked, so they quickly take him to the doctor for treatment. After being treated, there's a medical report that Starks is very lucky, because if the previous shot had aimed more to the right of his head, he could have really died. Now he experiences retrograde amnesia, acute psychological stress, and his squad mates don't find information about his family, so Starks doesn't get any relative visits during his recovery. 1 year later, Stark's condition is normal after receiving a Bronze Star Award for his service, and he returns to being an ordinary person. One day, while walking on a forest road, Starks meets a girl named Jackie, who is having trouble with her mother's car that broke down in the middle of the road. So Starks tries to communicate with the mother, who looks drunk after drinking, but she doesn't want to respond. So Starks starts helping to fix the car, followed by Jackie, who is interested in the necklace that Starks is wearing. So he tells her that it is a military dog tag with his name and birth date, and decides to give it to her when Jackie asks for it. After successfully starting the car again, the mother gets angry when Starks gets close to her child. Then the mother doesn't care about Stark's help, and finally, he has no choice but to leave. Sometime later, while looking for a ride, Starks sees a car passing on the road, so he asks for a ride to his destination. But after some time, the driver becomes worried about the car behind him, which turns out to be a police car telling the driver to pull over, and this makes Starks confused about what's happening. The reason the police stop the car is that he suspects the driver's way of driving is too slow, so he asks him to get out with his hands up, and suddenly the driver immediately shoots the police with a gun. As he is about to shoot back, the driver shoots his hand first, so the police's shot misses and hits Starks. Then he becomes unconscious, and finally, the police die. This makes him laugh, while trying to hide all the evidence by throwing his gun near Starks, before he regains consciousness and gets arrested by other police, because they suspect he killed the police. This is, of course, denied by Starks when he attends a trial, but he admits he doesn't remember many things when the shooting happened, because he experienced amnesia after getting hit by a stray bullet from the police. As a result, the judges decide Starks is not guilty by reason of insanity at the end of the trial. And finally, Starks is taken to a mental hospital, which is supervised by a criminal institution for the insane. There, Starks is taken to a room where he is handled by the hospital staff with various things, especially taking certain medicines, and he must take the medicine at the right time. One day, Starks is startled by several officers who enter in a hurry. Then they make Stark's condition weak, so he doesn't resist too much. And finally, he is taken to the basement, where there is a morgue drawer waiting for him. But before that, Starks is tied with a special jacket, so he has difficulty moving. So he tries to convince the officers that he is not insane, but they only reply that they're just doing their job. And finally, Starks is put into the morgue drawer. There, he sees his situation, which is pitch dark, and he can only move his tied hands, so his fear starts to increase. Suddenly, he gets visions of various events he experienced, so his fear increases even more. Then he begs to be taken out of this place, and finally, he screams as loud as he can. After 3 hours pass, the officers take out Starks, who just keeps staring up, but he is still conscious when he is told to blink his eyes, so a head doctor named Becker asks his team to return Starks to his room for treatment. During free time, gathering in the main room, Starks befriends the patient and meets a doctor who asks some ordinary questions. However, those questions make Starks emotional, with the message that he is not insane, until that emotion triggers him to commit violence by hurting Dr. Becker. So as his punishment, the officers tie Starks with the jacket again. Then he is put into the morgue drawer again, and finally, he is in the darkness again. When his fear increases again like before, suddenly he gets various visions again, but this time he can focus more on those visions. Then he sees something bluish, and finally he feels he has successfully escaped by moving near a diner. When he feels cold, he sees a woman who is coming home from work from the diner, and this makes her uncomfortable when Starks keeps staring at her. However, the woman doesn't really care, so she gets in a car, and finally, she leaves Starks. But apparently her heart is moved to help Starks, who is cold, so she backs up to tell him that no taxis are passing by this area, because today is a national holiday in late December. She then asks where he wants to go, to which Starks answers that he doesn't know for sure. So the woman decides to help Starks by finding him accommodation. But after asking around, it turns out there is no accommodation that can be contacted nearby. As a result, Starks feels bad for troubling the woman by leaving the house. But she tells him that Starks could die from the cold, and the woman would feel guilty. So she allows Starks to stay here longer. When the woman is about to get a drink, suddenly Starks gets a vision of himself being in the morgue drawer. And this makes him have a headache for a moment before his condition returns to normal. When he tries to introduce himself to the woman, she refuses because she just wants to help Starks. As a result, Starks again feels bad for troubling the woman. So Starks takes some available food supplies, and finally, the woman feels happy when she sees the food that Starks has prepared. When he tries to chat with the woman, Starks remembers that the woman just wants to help him. So Starks chooses to stay quiet until the woman falls asleep on the sofa. Starks then looks around the house, where he finds a military dog tag with his name, which reminds him that he once gave that necklace to a girl with a broken down car. And after Starks checks the woman's identity and photo when she was little, Starks strongly suspects that the woman behind him is Jackie, who is now an adult. So he confirms this by asking Jackie, and she reveals that the girl in the photo is her when she was little, and her mother died from burning from the cigarette she smoked, and that happened a long time ago. As a result, Starks becomes confused. So he asks what year it is now, to which Jackie answers that it is now 2007. This makes Starks suspect that he has time traveled to 2007. So he tells her that he's the man Jackie met when her car broke down, but she doesn't believe it that easily and reveals that the man named Starks died in early 1993. Jackie adds that his body was found near the new year of 1993 in the same mental hospital where Starks was treated, so he of course feels disbelief at the news. When he tries to convince Jackie once more, she can't stand asking Starks to leave the house, and finally, he leaves. Suddenly, he realizes that he has returned to the mental hospital, suspecting that the time travel effect is over, and he has to return to his original time. Sometime later, officers come to take Starks out according to schedule, where his condition is deteriorating when examined. So he is taken back to his room to undergo treatment. A few days later, Starks' condition is better, until he meets Dr. Becker, who wants to check his condition. After remembering that this is 1992, Starks says that he doesn't accept the way Dr. Becker's team treats him, especially by putting him in the morgue drawer, so Dr. Becker reasons that his team is forced to use restraint for Starks, and that is indeed the procedure for handling insane people who cross the line. Dr. Becker tells him that Starks experiences delusions as part of his condition, and his treatment is the toughest for patients like Starks, and he is like the patients that Dr. Becker has handled before. After he leaves, Starks thinks about starting to escape from the mental hospital by pretending to be insane, until he manages to get out of the place. But he is still not really free from the mental hospital because next he has to pass through an area with many trees. But in the middle of the journey, he is caught by Dr. Becker's colleague, Dr. Beth. She says that she is just asking Starks to return to the hospital. So he emphasizes that he is not insane, but Dr. Beth tells him that Starks is experiencing delusional disease doesn't mean he is insane, which means he is just confused, and his mind can't distinguish between fantasy and real events. Dr. Beth adds that Starks is not put in prison because of his condition, so his crime can still be forgiven, but Starks emphasizes that he is not the one who killed the police at that time, and Starks just doesn't remember when the incident happened. So Dr. Beth tries to calm Starks down by telling him that Dr. Beth wants to stop Dr. Becker's treatment method, especially the way of being put in the morgue drawer. This makes Starks remember that he can time travel by being in the morgue drawer, so he says that he wants to be treated again with Dr. Becker's treatment method, reasoning that it can make him feel like a different person. This is agreed by Dr. Beth. Then she warns that his business will get worse if Starks manages to escape, and finally, he returns to the mental hospital. There he shares his time travel experience with his friend, where he admits that he has also been put in the morgue drawer and traveled with a feeling like going on vacation. Starks then tells him that he will die 4 days later after he learned the news in the future, but before his friend can say anything, several officers come asking what they are talking about, so the friend confidently answers that he and Starks are talking about time travel. At first, Starks feels that his time travel incident will be discovered, but after he thinks twice that time travel doesn't make sense to others, he just agrees with his friend's answer. And finally, the officers leave while looking confused. After Starks is motivated by suggestions from his friend, he tells him that now Starks can't return to his morgue drawer because Dr. Beth has another patient to be put into Starks' drawer. So Starks and his friend start discussing a plan, And when the gathering session with the patients happens, Starks and his friend work together to create chaos. Then Starks is put back into a morgue drawer, and finally, he time travels to the future again. There, he meets Jackie at her workplace, where she realizes that Starks really wants to know more about his death. So Jackie tells him that Starks died from a head injury on January 1st, 1993, but she's not told how he could have gotten the injury at that time. Jackie also knows about Dr. Becker, who did something like a modification on his patients, which is creating something similar to the womb, and his action was actually banned since the 70s. Besides that, Jackie also knows about Dr. Beth, who treated her friend's child named Babbitt, and he suffered from a disease that was difficult for Dr. Beth to cure at that time. Now, Starks wants to find out why he could die, so Jackie tells him that the mental hospital still exists, so they go there. But when they ask about a patient named Starks, a doctor tells them that the Starks who died is actually Starks' uncle. And this, of course, makes the current Starks confused about his identity that changed in this future, but then he doesn't mind it to avoid trouble. He then asks where his doctors are, especially Dr. Becker and Dr. Beth, to which the doctor answers that Dr. Beth is still here as the leader. So Starks and Jackie go to meet Dr. Beth in her room, where she doesn't recognize who the current Starks is, but Dr. Beth knows his uncle, who looks very similar to the current Starks. He then asks why his uncle died, to which Dr. Beth answers that the uncle experienced head trauma, but she admits she doesn't really know what caused it, so she suggests asking Dr. Becker about it. But before Starks and Jackie go to meet Dr. Becker, they go to the morgue drawer room, where Starks shows the situation to Jackie, and Starks tells her that he is in a morgue drawer right now, in the past. So he tries to open the morgue drawer, but apparently his body is not there, and finally, Starks feels disappointed. He and Jackie then go to the cemetery, where they can confirm that the past version of Starks has died, while this future version of Starks is still alive. As a result, his fear starts to increase, until at some point, Stark has to time travel back to his original time. When he wakes up in the treatment room, there is Dr. Beth, who has been waiting for Starks to wake up and feels she can't do anything to help Starks, but she tells him that the time travel method is the only way. From there, Starks starts revealing his time travel secret, but Dr. Beth doesn't quite believe what Starks says and thinks that time travel is all an aspect of his delusion. This makes her remember Babbitt, her friend's child, who is being treated by Dr. Beth. So she feels disbelief that Starks knows about her personal matters. Then she considers everything Starks says is also a delusion. And finally, Dr. Beth leaves. Because his condition is still not up to Dr. Becker's expectations, Starks is put back in a morgue drawer, where he thinks about Jackie. And finally, Starks' time travels to the future again. After Starks meets Jackie, he tells her that he already knows about Babbitt's healing case, where it turns out that Dr. Beth uses electric shock therapy to treat the epilepsy disease that Babbitt suffers from. Meanwhile, for information about Dr. Becker, Jackie already knows where his house is, so she takes Starks there and meets Dr. Becker, who is getting older. But he admits he doesn't recognize who Starks is, so he convinces him that he is really the real Starks and not his uncle, as people know in this future. As a result, Dr. Becker becomes confused about how Starks can live again, because what Dr. Becker knows is that Starks has died in a mental hospital from the treatment that made him do something unthinkable. This is hard for Starks to believe, so he vents his anger about Dr. Becker's treatment method, but he reasons while crying that it was all to help Starks, and finally, Dr. Becker leaves. After getting an answer that doesn't meet expectations, Starks experiences a headache again, suspecting he will time travel back to his original time soon. So Jackie quickly takes him back home, and when she tries to do that, Starks asks where his home address is. But after he gets the answer, Stark's body is no longer there when Jackie looks at him. And finally, Starks time travels back to his original time. Not long after that, he is greeted by Dr. Becker, where Starks remembers Dr. Becker's face in the future, which looks scared as if seeing a ghost. So Starks teases that he has successfully haunted him, and finally, he laughs. Sometime later, Starks is treated again in the treatment room, where he asks Dr. Beth to give him a pen and paper because Starks wants to write something important. He then tells Dr. Beth to use electroshock therapy to treat Babbitt's epilepsy. So in that way, Babbitt will reset himself. This is just known by Dr. Beth that Babbitt has epilepsy, and no one has ever used that therapy method on children, but because Dr. Beth starts to believe in Stark's time travel, she starts using the electric shock therapy method on Babbitt. After the preparation is ready, Babbitt starts to be shocked. Then after a while, it turns out he can communicate again, and finally, Dr. Beth feels very happy. As a result, she feels indebted to Stark's help. So he asks for Dr. Beth's help to take him to Jackie's house, where Starks meets Jackie's mother and asks her to believe in the contents of a letter that Starks has written. As a result, the The mother feels touched by Stark's message, that he already knows her child Jackie's life will be gloomy in the future if the mother doesn't change her gloomy lifestyle. Starks also tells her how the mother will die one day, which turns out to be because of fire that burns her after she falls asleep while smoking a cigarette, so she immediately puts away the cigarette before it's too late. After his important message is delivered, Stark's condition gets worse, so he asks Dr. Beth to put him in the morgue drawer again because he has to time travel to meet Jackie in the future. But right after Starks gets out of the car, suddenly he remembers when he got shot by the child, and finally, Starks' head hits the ground after slipping. When he finally knows that he actually died from hitting the ground, Dr. Beth asks her colleague to quickly carry Starks into the morgue drawer. Then he is in the darkness again, and finally, he time travels to the future. With the dried blood on his head, Starks arrives near Jackie's workplace, where Starks sees Jackie coming out to go to her car. And finally, she's not scared anymore when Stark stares at her like before, as a sign that he has successfully changed Jackie's past that impacts the future. At first, Starks thinks that he is not destined to be friends with Jackie in this new future. But Starks is wrong. It turns out that Jackie wants to greet Starks to ask about the wound on his head, so he tells her that he is still okay. The movie ends with Jackie wanting to give help to take Starks to the hospital. Then Jackie gets a call from her mother asking how she is, along with a Happy New Year greeting, and finally, Starks and Jackie start to become friends. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.